This episode of Let's Knit Together is sponsored by yarnmarket.com. Fabulous fashions, fast and friendly.
I guess I got the bug of knitting when I was in high school. Actually, I learned how to knit in elementary school. That was part of the curriculum. I grew up in Montreal in French schools, and the nuns were teaching us how to knit. Oh. And as a teenager in the 70s, it was kind of cool to knit and crochet, at least with my friends. And a few years later, in my early 20s, I found out that you could submit design ideas to magazines. You just had to kind of send either a sketch or a completed sweater, which is what I did at the time. And that's where their knitted things came from. So I did that, and I had a lot of rejections, but I was stubborn. And eventually I sold my first design that I paid the yarn. I bought the yarn myself, and I think I got paid $75. And actually I sold two to the same issue. And after that, it gave me some courage to continue doing that and, send to a lot of the publications. And I started as a freelance designer and worked with most of the major magazines and a lot of yarn companies back in the 80s. And I wrote 5 knitting books in the 80s. And at the time, it wasn't like it is now with the internet that you get a lot of publicity. It was all basically people going to the bookstore, the yarn shops, and seeing you things. I made a career out of it. I mean, I'm an art school dropout. And I found out that, working with fibers was really more my thing. And eventually got hired as the editor of McCall's Needlework and Crafts magazine back in the early 90s. Did that for a bit and left that, went on back to freelancing, and eventually had friends who started K1C2 back in, I think, 1997 in California, and they decided to sell the yarn portion of the business in 2003, and they offered it to me, and I thought, I haven't done that yet. Sounds like a good idea, and I went ahead and purchased the company.
Do you know how they came up with the name?
It was K1C2. I'm not really sure. Obviously, I'm not sure what came first, the chicken or the egg, whether it was Knit One Crochet Too and then it became K1C2 as a abbreviated version, or the other way around. But when they sold the company, they kept the K1C2 part of the company, which included a bunch of accessories like the color wheel that they're still selling and things like that, and they were able to divide the company in half and assign the Knit One Crochet Too title to the part that I purchased, which was all the yarns.
Right, the yarns.
Mm-hmm.
So what's it like to sort of pick fibers and ideas? How do ideas come together for creating new yarns?
Well, I usually get samples from manufacturers initially, often anyway, and I'll start looking at that. And more often than not, I may not see something that I want just as is. I'll see something that will trigger an idea in my mind of what could be something that people would be interested in, and more importantly, what will get my creative juices flowing as far as the design part of the project. So that's how it starts. And we go back and forth getting, refined samples. And sometimes ideas that I thought were going to be great turn out to be not so great. And sometimes it's like we just love them. And then, of course, we hope that everybody else will too. But more often than not, once we're really excited about a yarn, it usually is a good seller because some folks think the same as we do and they get excited about it too.
For the fall, are there any new exciting types of yarns coming out that we should be ready for?
Well, we brought in a couple of yarns this season, and one of them, I'm thinking there's been a lot, there was the fuzzy yarn period where everything was just out of control. And then now we're kind of like the opposite. Everything now is very simple, very streamlined. All the yarns are very well behaved. And I love those. They're great for a lot of applications, but I think that folks may be a little bit tired of that. So I introduced one of the two yarns. Is called Wrapunzul with a W, because one yarn wraps around the other in its construction. So there's no hair, there's no glitz, there's no pom-pom, none of that. But it has a little thick and thin texture, and it's multicolored.
This sweater project, what's it called?
This particular sweater is called a Rio. I don't know, I come up with names sometimes it has no rhyme or reason. Now, the one that's next to it I call Fiona because it reminded me of Shrek.
Oh.
And Fiona would probably be wearing something like this
Oh, right.
if she needed a garment made out of wool in the forest.
This is a beautiful color too. Oh gosh.
We call that silver fern.
Silver fern. And the cables on the sleeve, what a great idea.
Mm-hmm.
It's really pretty.
Well, when you're dealing with a yarn that has some texture, sometimes it's difficult to show. Like I tried doing a simple lace pattern in this yarn and it just didn't show up very well.
Yeah.
And I thought maybe a cable would be the best thing to do if you're going to put any kind of texture in the garment.
And even with the fuzziness, the cable shows up very well. It still has great stitch definition. It's this one over here, because this is one of my favorite colorways, actually.
Well, this one I wanted to do something a little bit different. So sometimes the design aspect is based on a pattern stitch of some type. In this particular case, it's more on the shape of the garment than anything else. And I also wanted to show that you can mix these colors together. So you've got two colors of Wrapunzul here that obviously have the red in common. And then we use our Tartelette, which is one of our ribbons, as a trim.
That's my favorite, actually.
Oh,
I use that all the
good.
time.
So sometimes, I think some folks may not think that this color would go necessarily well with this, but I thought since you could find it in this one, it was a nice accent for that color.
Well. Yeah.
And I added in the back a little more of a...
Cute. Oh, that's great.
So it's hard to see here. Obviously, all the garments are either facing forward or backwards. In this case, it faces forward and nobody gets to see that. But we put it in the fashion show and folks got to see the back as well.
Oh,
so.
awesome. What else is new for fall? Anything else?
We introduced two new yarns for the fall, and one of them is our tie-dye socks dots. And tie-dye socks is, as I said, one of our best lines because of the way that it's dyed, which are long color repeats.
Right.
But the dots is basically one color, solid color that has little speckles of colors printed on there. One of the best things besides the color is the feel of it. A lot of folks saying they love the softness of it. And it is machine washable, and of course one ball makes a pair of socks. But so we thought we would capitalize on that positive effect of this yarn by using the same exact yarn and doing some other painted effect on there. Yeah, this is what it looks like when it's knitted.
It knits up beautifully.
And it's sort of like, from afar you would think it's a real tweed,
Yeah,
but it's not. Obviously, it's a printed yarn, and this hat here is made out of the same yarn, the little off-white one.
It's like confetti.
It is. It's like sprinkles. It's like a party in your feet.
Yeah, that's adorable.
We had done for the spring last season, this is the tie-dye dots in the cotton. So it's the same kind of application, the basic color, and then you have the sprinkles over it, which I think looks really cute.
Well, when I first walked in, I spotted Hey Teach here.
Oh, yes.
Is this as popular as I think it is?
It is. It has, like I said, it was a life of its own. I think it should get its own zip code by now. There's been a lot of, this is amazing because when I designed this garment, I had Amy at knitty.com had contacted me and said, do you want to design something for the next issue? And I said, sure. And I put this together in about 10 minutes as far as the concept in my head. I just did a little swatch, and this pattern stitch is nothing too complicated really. Pretty basic lace here, and sent it on to her, and she said, sure, go for it. So went ahead and did that, and it works up really quickly. It's in second time cotton at 4 1/4 stitches to the inch, and of course you make it small, to fit a little person. And who knew? Who knew? It's really fun to see folks wearing it because I'll be walking the show and see people, and of course I'm like, hey, Teach,
I'm amazed at how many ways people have modified it to suit their body size or type, and how easy it is based on the way you've designed it to do that, to either adjust this higher if you want more of an A-line, or adjust this lower if you want more of a fitted shape to it.
It's great to see that folks are really experimenting and doing their own tailoring. And I always say, for those that don't think in that direction yet, I tell them, put a garment on in your wardrobe that fits you well and take some measurements from that, and then you can translate that to your garment when you're knitting it. Because obviously, even though we wrote the pattern, I think it's in 6 or 7 different sizes, not everybody is uniform and shaped, like I may be tall and wide, or I may be short and wide, and the length will be different for either version.
Right.
So yeah, it's cool to see, and I love to see all the photos on Ravelry of everybody, all the different versions. Some of them are just gorgeous, and some of them, I mean, most of them are gorgeous, I have to say, really. It looks, and the fact that they're so proud of their project, it makes me happy. I've designed, over 1,000 things. I've been doing it forever, and having the ability of seeing it like that is great, because I'd never had that before. Like in the 80s when I did things, there was no way for me to even see that people were making them, but now I can, so it's good. It's good.
So what do you think is next for you?
More yarn, more colors, more design. It never ends. Folks ask me, do you knit every day? I'm like, I do every day, at night and the weekends. I'm always doing it. So folks in my personal life, I've gotten used to it. They stop saying, what are you knitting? It's always a sweater, Is it for you? No, it's not for me. I don't really knit for myself a whole lot, but I don't have any grand plans. I just continue doing this. This is a wonderful, wonderful job, and it's not really a job. And I told the guy at the bank, my banker, I said, when you go home at night, you don't sit with your calculator in front of the television. So you don't take your work home with you, and I do, but the difference is who would want to do that, whereas with me, I get to do everything I love every day, so I'm pretty blessed.
Join us for our next live show, Saturday, November 20th at 6 p.m. Eastern, to share your latest projects. Go to letsknittogether.com/live for complete details on how to participate. In the interview, Helene talked about some of her great yarns and patterns. Yarnmarket.com is now carrying some new Knit One Crochet Too yarns, including the worsted weight thick and thin yarn called Wrapunzul. It's created by having one strand of matte finish yarn wrapped around a strand with a bit of sheen, giving the yarn a great textured look that works great for garments and accessories. One project I'm planning on my queue is this Wrapunzel Fiona cardigan. It's knitted from side to side with cables on the sleeves. It adds a little playfulness to wear over a plain dress and would make a perfect holiday cardigan. So check out Wrapunzel and other Knit One Crochet Too yarns at yarnmarket.com. For some reason, the Entrelac episode is our most popular episode. Apparently, a lot of you are really interested in this technique. Well, XRX recently released this beautiful book, Entree to Entrelac, the definitive guide from a biased knitter by Gwen Bortner. It's a great introduction to Entrelac and has some amazing projects like sweaters, scarves, and bags. We'd like to give this book to one lucky winner. Just leave a comment at letsknittogether.com on this episode, number 85, with an answer to this question. What is your favorite Entrelac project that you've done or plan to do? On November 18th, we'll select one random winner. You can find me on Twitter, Plurk, and Ravelry as Let's Knit Together. You can join our Facebook page at facebook.com/letsknittogether, and you can email me at cat@letsknittogether.com. You can find me on Twitter, Plurk, and Ravelry as Nuts.
What? Okay.
Okay.